Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here, dropping in on you. I hope that everybody is having a good week. It has been both fulfilling and challenging this week. Obviously, I hit milestone 55, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the things that I've been able to do in this past year, despite all the challenges and difficulties. At the same time, I am right now in the throes of a fundraiser, obviously for Black Men Lead. I've been sharing that with you for some time. And I want to share some things with you here to give you some insight into what our boys face. I want to share some statistics and some numbers with you here with uh, uh, sorry about that. Or they will just keep sending. Um, there's so much going on, and I am immensely um, engaged and committed to the work I do in the Black community as a whole, boys, girls, families, um, schools, and so many other things. And definitely, I see a need for the work we do with Black Men Lead in socializing, preparing, and providing wraparound services for Black males. Not just through the rite of passage program, but all the way up to the age of 30. Actually, I a couple of weeks back helped a 50-year-old man, 52-year-old man, and his 14-year-old son. So it extends beyond the 30-year-old limit, age range, but that's where it's normally set up to get to these young people and really provide them what they need. What I want to do is give you some insight into why it's important for us to really confront this and deal with this. Like I said, right now we are doing a week push. The goal is to raise $5,000 by the end of the week. It's a drop in the bucket for the work that is being done and has to be done and the resources that are needed. One of the things, there are two things I really want to do with this program. And then I'm gonna tell you also, don't forget, if you haven't gotten, if you haven't gotten the War on Black Wealth, Chasing the American Dream, the book is dropping this coming week. And if you haven't gotten it, you want it, because this is a walk down on Black wealth, not just what we've had to go against and what's been holding us back, but how we get there despite it. You want this. It's comprehensive. It's some of my best work. The link is in the box. Now I can get that out of the way. Look, there are two things that are really on my mind and I'm passionate about. Yes, I want to work with Black males. Yes, I want to touch lives. And I do that. I do that every day. I am literally contacted daily by people who either want me to work with their sons or by young Black males who want to work with me and reach out to me directly. I have no problem with that. I want that to continue. I will do everything I can to connect with each person. I may not be able to give you all of my time because it's being pulled in so many different ways, but there's a way to do that. And that's why I created the program. I created the program for that very reason. Here's the thing. Number one is I want to create a national network. I want to go to all the major cities over the course of maybe a year to a year and a half in the US and teach the people in the community there how to execute the program, what to do, the principles, how to engage, how to attract young Black males to get them in, how to keep them in, what will happen, the power of the Black male touch, and all of these other things that are a part of this. I want to teach that to them so that they can implement it. I want to create a universal rite of passage, a universal idea and designation of what Black manhood is, so we know what we're striving for, so that we can hold one another accountable to meeting a measure of a man as we need it to be in our communities. And there are some distinct and specific things we have to be able to do, and that's what we teach. Second of all, I want to create an environment, and I tried to do this about 8 years ago and I got no support about it. I want to create a space where some of the most troubled boys can come to Houston and work with me. I want to create it where they can be housed, where they can be trained, where they can be schooled. I want to be able to do at least 100 boys. And again, that's going to require resource. Those are things that we can do. I would like to see it much bigger than 100 bars, but you have to start somewhere. I would like to see one of these schools in all of the major cities. But what I want to do is to create this network in the major cities, and then the cities in the major cities in each state reach out to the smaller places, and they teach. This is how you impact and infect the world. You have to be infectious about what you're doing. You have to spread what you have. You can't do it all. And I'm trying to get people to see this, but I want you to see the importance of why this is necessary. We have to see the value, first of all, in our Black males. And then we have to see the things that they're actually up against and realize that they're not playing on a level playing field, and they don't have the resources they need, and we are responsible for giving it to them. We need to, first of all, as Malcolm said, we cannot expect our enemies to educate our children. It just doesn't make sense. No one's going to educate your child to compete against theirs. That's the first thing you have to understand. It's the law of survival. It's the law of preservation. But I want to talk to you about some things that over the years I have compiled, some things that I stay on top of, the things that make me passionate about loving on these boys, about reaching out to these boys, about touching these boys. We see all the stuff we want to complain about. We see how violent they are. We see how abusive they can be. We see how dumbed down they are. We see all the things that the world wants us to see about them, and the world wants to project about young Black males. And we don't see the yearning of their heart to be special, the yearning of their heart to rise up and be held and be loved and be appreciated and have a place. We don't see the yearning of their desire to have a force and be powerful and have the ability to impress their will upon things like other men do. We don't see that, and we don't see how it's intercepted almost immediately when they go into the school systems, how their environments are moving against them. We want to sit up and judge the final product without talking about the process, and I'm not going to allow it to happen. Yes, I'm challenging every person that believes that we need to do better. It was Frederick Douglass that stood up and said that it is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. We are dealing with a lot of broken men. Men, some of them, they know something's wrong. Others, they don't even know anything is wrong, but they are being judged by how they're operating in their brokenness, and how they're operating in ineptitude, how they're operating in the lack of potency, how they're operating in the lack of power. And we have the ability to change this. 54%, well, African Americans as a whole have a graduation rate of 54% compared to over 75% for whites. Black males are 2.5 times more likely to be suspended from school. Black males over the age of 18 and over, actually, only make up about 5.5% of the total college student population. Out of the two, here's where it gets real interesting. I'm gonna tell you why education is important, even in a broken even in a broken academic system. Out of the 2.3 million incarcerated people in America, over 1 million of them are African American males. Prison is the only place where the Black man is a majority. And it's not by accident. We're talking about they are intercepted as early as kindergarten. K through 12, they're already into a process that alienates them. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. But here's why the academic system is important, even though they're not being holistically educated. I have said in my books, The Miseducation of Black Youth in America, my 16th book, and my 24th book, Academic Apartheid. Well, yeah, my 24th book, Academic Apartheid. I have said both times that education is the holistic process of preparing and empowering Black youth to go out into a world that's inherently hostile towards them, and not only compete, perform, but to win. And that's what we're not doing. We're not preparing them. And so we don't expect the academic system to educate, because that's not what it's designed to do. It's designed to indoctrinate. But here's the problem. We have enough empirical data, enough evidence to tell us that when a Black male doesn't make it through school and at least get a high school diploma, he's 5 times more likely to go to prison. Then we also know that if he goes to prison and he serves his time and he's released, he's 75% likely to recidivate. That means be a repeat offender and go back to prison. And once he's in that system, it's hard for him to get out. And we have to understand that there is a mechanism and a movement and a momentum behind it. It's not that we are inherently criminal minded. It's not that we have some type of violent gene. It's that we are not insulating our young Black boys. We're not insulating our young Black girls. We are not creating an environment where they can be upheld. And I'm going to talk about it as I move through this stuff. But yes, out of 2.3 million, obviously America has the highest prison population in the industrial world. And out of that 2.3 million, 1 million are Black men. That's out of the 1.5 million Black men, there go a million of them right there. And the absence is felt in the community by the community at large and at whole. 1 in 3 Black males will spend time in prison during their lifetime. That's 33% of Black males born are going to end up in jail. Now, also, over 32% of the African-American population are living below the national average as far as income is concerned. And extreme poverty cripples the ability to have access to an education. Not everybody's going to be an athlete. Not everybody's going to get access to scholarships. And again, that impacts their ability to learn. And again, I'm not saying that the degree is the only pathway to money. I'm saying that there are a bunch of pathways. Everybody's not a college kid, but what you have to have is a means and a method in which you instill in the mind of these children the importance of being prepared. Maybe you're not college material, but what are you going to do in order to elevate yourself and prepare yourself to be able to earn a living that will allow you to not only take care of yourself, but to support a family and to develop and build wealth that you will pass on to your progeny, your offspring, so that we create a mechanism in time where we can start closing the wealth gap. Because without closing the wealth gap, we cannot create power. Because it doesn't matter if I have 1.4 trillion in spending power, and most of that is actually debt. So it's actually us spending credit, not us spending assets. So it's still not the same as power. We're talking about wealth. Wealth is actually assets owned minus debt. But check this out. Until we create this ability to do that, we are never going to have power. Everybody talks about the 1.4 trillion, but what we don't talk about it in context of it being a part of $100 trillion economy. So it's still 1% of the overall wealth and fluidity within an economy. There's no power in that. Especially when it's all being spent in places where there's nothing coming back to you. We don't know how to invest. We don't know how to do other things, but I just had to put that out there. Black youth are 3 times more likely to be victims of child abuse and neglect. Again, that's an environmental issue more than it is a cultural issue. As long as there's poverty, there's going to be problems. As long as we're not dealing with past ills, as long as we're not dealing with perpetuated trauma. I've written on multi-generational trauma and Born in Captivity and the undoing of the African-American mind. What I'm trying to get you to understand is I spent my life studying our issues so that we could come up with solutions. One of the things I was able to come up with is that when we socialize young Black boys, we literally extract them from the claws of a system that is literally synced and timed to get them. I mean, you literally have a situation where a young Black boy at the age of 5, kindergarten, goes into school and in an environment where over 50% of the teachers are going to be white middle-aged women who are automatically uncomfortable with them and already primed to push them towards special education. And why? Number one, the school district, the school gets double for a child in special education. money wise. So it's more money in it. And so they push them. But what happens when you push them in special education? First thing is you alienate them. You take them out of regular class, you put in another class, and then you put a negative connotation or a negative identity on that class. So now you're messing with their self-image, their self-esteem, and you're breaking them. You're alienating them. You're making them feel accepted, and you're pushing them out. Here's the other thing. Now we're going to need something to validate having them in here. So what are we going to do? We're going to get the school psychologists to diagnose them with ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder, both of which can be medicated with what's known as Schedule II drugs, which are highly addictive and have very little medicinal use. But we do it because we know that based on science and how they're doing things, that if we give someone who has a what we consider a hyperactive disorder, that if we actually give them a stimulant, it normally has the reverse effect than it would have on a normal person. It normally calms them down. But we don't look for other means to do it. We don't look for other instances. We don't look to see what's going on in the home. We don't look to see what may be happening with the little boy. We're not looking for the gift. We're not looking for why they're doing it. We just want them to stop. And so that's easy. So we're going to diagnose them with ADHD. We're going to diagnose them with oppositional defiant. We're going to give them conservative Vyvanse, Adderall, Ritalin, and we're going to pump it in them. And so now they're walking around with psychotropic drugs in their system as early as 5 years old. And it's going to be pushed on them their entire school career. They're constantly being alienated. And where are we? What are we doing? I've written about this. I've written in depth about the disproportionality in special education referrals. I've written a position paper. I've put it in Academic Apartheid. I wrote on it. I spoke on it. I advocate for students around the U.S. Parents contact me, and I advocate with school districts to actually pull these kids out. Parents, this is something I want you to understand. I want you to understand that in the U.S. school district, in the public school system, they cannot assess your child for special education. And I'm not saying that some kids don't need them, but they cannot without your permission. But once you give them permission, it's hard getting them out. It's hard, but there's a process to do it. If you need to understand it, if you need help with it, reach out to us, and we will gladly help you through the process of making sure that your child is represented and advocated for. We are the advocates for our children, and we absolutely have to stand up for them. We absolutely have to let them know we have our backs. And our boys are really feeling alienated in this system because it's not designed to hold them. It's not designed. They'll give our girls a little more leeway. Our girls are going to find it easier to matriculate into universities than it is for our boys. They're going to find it easier to move into corporate America. Why? Because they aren't considered a threat as much as the black man is. The black man is considered a threat to white men in a patriarchal society. You have to understand how this thing is set up. So that's not it. I'm not done. We are having a mental health crisis because we are not in the right place in dealing with our young black boys. In the last 6 years alone, the rate of suicide, not suicide attempts, not suicidal ideation, suicide, in the last 6 years alone, we have seen an increase of 49% in suicides in black males. One of the things is just the discussion of mental illness and mental health in the black community has a stigma attached to it. Nobody wants to take on the idea of them being crazy. This isn't about crazy. This is about mental illness. This is about struggling with depression. This is about shouldering the pressure and expectations of an entire generation without having the means through which to execute what is expected, and then carrying it because you want to be something. The idea that black men don't want to measure up is absolutely ridiculous. The idea that black men don't want to hold it down is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, you got a bunch of people that's been fed a bunch of crap, and they're out there doing it. They're killing one another. They're out there promoting BS. But here's the thing. Who's preparing them? Who's giving them the knowledge? Who's giving them the brain is stimulated. The brain has the ability to literally evolve and to change into whatever it's being fed. There's this thing called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity totally blew up the world of the idea of being hardwired into a behavior. What we know now is neuroplasticity says I can change anything about my life I want to by what I feed my brain. But what are their brains being fed? We give them the phone. 2 and 3 years old, I'm out eating And I'm looking over, there's a family, there's mom, there's dad, there's the 14-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 6-year-old, and the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old has a phone. It's in a little plastic thing, but it's a phone, and it's got a little stand, and he's just swiping. I stood up and saw a short clip the other day, and it just totally blew my mind. They were posting it because they were thinking it was funny. And it broke my heart because it told me where we're at right now. There's a 2-year-old. They give the 2-year-old an actual magazine with pages. The 2-year-old looks at it. He sees the pictures, so he knows there's more in it. The 2-year-old swiping a magazine. Never turned a page in their life. And you're going to have an entire generation of people that have been fed by devices. And it's nothing wrong with the device. Device is neutral, but the problem is who's controlling the content. Go to Instagram, and Black girls are being told what beautiful is, and it doesn't look like them. Go to Instagram, and Black boys are being told, you get the bag, you get the bag, you get the girl. And the girl has been told, you want the guy with the bag. Nobody's talking about who has a vision. Nobody's talking about who's building. Nobody's talking about who's protecting. Nobody's talking about who's covering. We're just talking about grabbing, snatching, and giving a presentation that we've arrived. Look what I drive. Look what I'm wearing. Nobody is building anything on the inside. So the moment that something is snatched from them that they identify with, they kill themselves. We had 2 beauty pageant winners. One of them was Miss America, jumped from a building last year. Or was it this year? Here's another thing that is not directly with bars, but it's something that we've got to pay attention to because we're talking about the mental health of our babies. For the first time in God knows how long, over the last couple of years, Blacks have taken the lead in a statistical category dealing with suicide. Remember, that used to be a joke, ongoing joke back in the 70s, 80s. Black people don't kill themselves. I don't care how bad it gets. We ain't killing ourselves. That's not the case anymore. That's not the case anymore. We're going to have to be realistic and start to own that we have a problem. Look, guess what statistical categories we're leading in suicide in. Like I said, we're going to get off the conversation of boys just for a second to talk about it. Young Black girls, 2 age groups, 5 to 11 and 10 to 13. Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram, and Facebook knows. They've gotten the studies. We are responsible for the content that our babies consume because the content is feeding their subconscious, and their subconscious is what's deciding their behavior. 96% of what we do is governed by our subconscious mind. It's done instinctively, immediately, and without reserve. We have to do better. Then after special education, disproportionality, our kids are dealing with what? Inadequate resources. Here's another one. Only 10% of 8th grade boys are reading on an adequate level. Let me say that again. Only 10% of 8th grade boys are reading on an adequate level. Let me explain to you how important reading is. The average American only reads 1 book a year, but the top 5% of performers in this country read an average of 4 books a year. The ability to read, to apprehend, comprehend, understand, and be able to apply what has been read and retained is the key to mobility in this country. There's absolutely nothing that anyone can stop you from doing when you're able to open up a page, read it, and say, this is how you do it. You can go out and learn anything. I learned how to create an entire environment and an entire institution online with when my brick and mortar businesses took a hit during the collapse in 2007, 2008, and all that. I rebuilt myself by being able to read. Because I can read, I was able to create because I was, and the thing is, only 10% of our 8th grade boys are reading at an adequate level. That's on us. We have a serious problem that we're not confronting. So when I'm talking about socializing young Black boys, this isn't some little easy come to camp program. This isn't some little, hey, we're going to get together and shoot basketball. All of that's good. Spend time with. What I'm talking about, we got to construct the mind of a winner in a place where everything that they're playing on their headphones is telling them that there's something less than what they are. We've got to be more engaged. We've got to be more focused. We've got to be more committed. We are going to push this fundraiser, and we're going to do the work. I have never stopped doing the work despite being underfunded at an unbelievable rate. I have never balked at what I was called to do. I will not balk. I will not quit, but I am going to sound the alarm. I am going to come screaming and yelling. We are failing our boys. Like I told you, when I did the research on African-American adolescent and young adult male violence, I found that there were 5 influencers. I studied those influencers. What I found out is that number 2, the lack of proper racial socialization, can be the most easily influenced and have the most monumental impact. We know that when you properly socialize a Black boy, he's less likely to drop out of school. He's less likely to go to prison. He's less likely to become violent. He's more likely to become a business owner. He's more likely to execute his responsibilities as a father. That's huge. But what are we can't sit here and think it's just going to happen. It's going to take an engagement. I just told you 1 million of our men are in prison. There's a gap that has to be filled. It's not going to be filled by sitting up and just talking about it. They're not going to come here and get it. I got to go to them. I've got to take it to the people who are willing to be out there. It is time to eat. I mean, something my grandfather used to say when I would be contemplating doing something and it was something heavy in front of me. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, I'm really going to get off and do this. And my grandfather said, boy, piss or get off the pot. What is he saying? If you're going to do it, go get it. And it's not going to be easy. Sitting around contemplating it is not going to make it easy. Sitting around talking about it is not going to make it done. You're going to have to go out there and do it. It's time for us to piss or get off the pot. It's time for us to stop talking about Black revolution and stop talking about Black empowerment if we're not going to put in the work, if we're not going to invest, if we're not going to sit down and say our children are important enough to sit down and create an environment around them where they can win. Talking does nothing. That's what they love about us. We will talk and debate. We will complain and point fingers. We will grab picking sides. We'll tear up an entire neighborhood. We ain't building jack. We're not going to funnel and condense and empower and force our money into anything. They count on it. And every so often they do something to trigger us just to see if we're still in the same place and we don't even get it. These litmus tests where they sit up and they post stuff. The stuff that they're posting, it happens every day. If you're in the community, you know it's happening every day. What they want to do is see how you respond to it. Are you ready to organize? Are you ready to unify? Are you ready to come together? They told you what their greatest fear was. When J. Edgar Hoover was asked, what's the greatest threat to American security? Without pausing, he said, Black unity. And if you look at what the government has done with Hoover on forward, it's been all about keeping us divided. It's been all, look, they got rid of the Black Nationalist Party, the Black Panther Party. Hip hop, most people don't even realize hip hop rose out of that. Hip hop was birthed out of the destruction, out of COINTELPRO destroying the Black Panther Party and the Black Nationalist Party. It was a new language. It was a new culture. It was a new way of educating. It was a new way of challenging the Black community. And it was birthed out of that. We allowed that to be usurped. We allowed it to be hijacked. We allowed it to be the greatest weapon against us now. Our kids are pumping that mess in their ears so fast, and it's telling them they aren't anything but criminals. They aren't anything but physicality. They are all, the only assets they have are their bodies. It's telling them that they don't have the ability to be great, and they are greatness. They're not just possessing the ability, they are the inherent embodiment of it, but they don't know it. You can't be anything that you don't understand or know, even when it's sitting right inside of you. I am challenging to be a part of this. I am challenging you to raise up and become. I am challenging you to be everything that you can be. You can be what you are. But together we can be extremely powerful. Together we can move some things. Together we can come together. I have spent countless hours over years putting together programs that work. I know they work because I use them every day. But we need to reach more children. We are destroying ourselves from the inside out. The African proverb says, if there's no enemy on the inside, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm. We are subject to the movements and the throes of white supremacy racism because we haven't dealt with how we're going to love on one another, how we're going to protect one another. We're so easily triggered against one another, it blows my mind. We spend most of our time online going at one another. The gender war, the sexual war, it's always us against us. And go back to Hoover. The greatest threat to American security is Black unity. And so what is the effort? Keep them divided, keep them focused, get them focused on individualism. Show them their individuality and tell them that's the most important thing to them. Tell them nobody has a right to tell them anything or hold them accountable to anything. They have the right to do whatever they want, have whatever they want, move however they want, do whatever they want to anyone else. It's this idea that's being pushed now that's just slowly just destroying any chance we have of ever rising to a place of power. What's going to happen when we become economically and numerically irrelevant because they're replacing us with Latinos? What happens when there's no need for us in any space? What do you think is happening? They've shown you what they're capable of doing. This is the same place. This is the same country. They've just been real subtle with it because they still need you to do and move in certain ways. What happens when they no longer need us? Because we've allowed ourselves to become economically insignificant. And they've done it because they've been able to break down our youth and turn our youth loose, unprepared. I could talk about this all day, but I'm going to be coming. I'm challenging everybody that watches the video to donate. I've removed all the extra stuff that's normally in the description box. You can either buy the book that's being released or you can donate. That's the only thing that's in that description box. I'm asking everybody to not only donate, but to challenge at least 5 friends to do the same. It's no way that we shouldn't reach the goal of 5,000. Now, again, that's a drop in the bucket for what it is required to do this. But we have to start somewhere. And if I threw the number out of what it actually costs, and if you actually sit down and do the math of just like, okay, for each person, I've got to do X, Y, Z, and all of this, trying to set up a national network and all this stuff, you can start looking at what it actually costs. If I throw that number out, nobody's even listening to the video anymore. I'm trying to get people involved because if I get people involved, I get people active. Because what's going to actually happen is, yes, we need the financial resources, but we also need bodies. We need people to start training to replace these teachers that aren't teaching our children like they're supposed to. And from what I understand, I know in Houston, every school district in the Houston area, and there are a bunch, are at a major deficit for teachers for the coming year. People are bouncing. Guess who's going to suffer the most from those deficits? I guarantee you the white schools are going to have their teachers. They're going to go get the teachers from the other schools. Guess what students are going to suffer? That's on us. It's time to make a move. It's time to sit up and stop talking about it and start being about it and start making things happen. I'm going to consistently be on the front line. I'm going to consistently do what I do as a scientist, as a researcher, as a human behavioral specialist, as a writer, but I'm also going to be hands on the ground. Boots on the ground, hands on. That's what I've been doing my whole life. I work with them. I got boys I meet every week. I got guys I'm mentoring in different cities around the U.S. I'm giving them my time. But in Houston, I've got guys come and sit down with me, and we talk everything from manhood to business. We're preparing them, but I'm one person. but I'm going hard. I say this all the time, whether it's my business, whether it's my community work. I say this all the time, and I mean it. I live my life on full so that when I leave this place, I die on E. I'm not going to leave this place and have any regrets about what I could have done. I'm going to leave this place knowing I came and I gave it everything I had. I'm challenging you to join me. So I appreciate it. I hope that you really, truly join in and support. On that note, I'm about to get out of here. I still got a lot of stuff to do. It's midday and I still have a long way to go, but I thank you for stopping in. I thank you, Cheryl. If you're still on here, I know I've been on here a while since you got on, but if you're still on here, I really appreciate all the love and support you've shown. Anthony Thomas, thank you for dropping in. And for everybody that's going to watch it on the playback, thank you. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.